So here we are again, episode 15 for the German people. It's not German anymore, it's English again. I hope you bear with us as we have a special guest today. Rainer and I will welcome Nandini Gulati. And you can guess it by the name, not from Hamburg, not from Germany, but connecting live from a bit outside of New Delhi in India. She is what she calls herself, a holistic health coach and the founder of the Empowered Health Tribe. And what you will learn today is, for example, among other things, how suppressed emotions call illness, how changing your food and lifestyle helps but will not be enough, and how to align with your life's purpose to heal. Let's take the screen off. Let's mute the music. Welcome, Rainer.
Hi, Bastian. Thanks for having me again as your co-host. And I'm really interested in how this episode will go, because all the topics that you have mentioned were part of my life as well. And I'm curious to know more about the insights and what Nandini have learned on her way.
So let's bring her in.
Yeah, one click and we added her to the stage. Welcome, Nandini.
Namaste. Namaste. And welcome to everybody who connected or may watch this later or maybe hear it as a podcast. And now, Nandini, I introduced you in a few words. What did I miss?
I think you covered the highlights. I'm happy with whatever you said. Of course, this is the second part of my life. I had a past life before this as well, but I think it's irrelevant for our talk today.
I would not say that it's probably irrelevant, Nandini. I'm quite sure that something in the past had influence into this step from working in a big corporation to being an empowered or the founder of the Empowered Health Tribe.
Yeah, existential crisis. Yes, I used to work with corporates earlier in marketing, and it feels like a past life because it's so long ago. I quit in 2005, and the reason I quit was actually I lost my father. And that made me really think about what is the purpose of life. Because for me, it was very moving when in India, we usually burn, burn the dead bodies. And before the person is put into, there was an electric crematorium, it's called a cremation. And before they take the person in, they actually open all the hands and they remove anything that may be bound, because when they carry it, they actually carry on the shoulders. So they have to bind everything. So, it's contained. And when they opened everything and I saw my father's empty hands, there's a saying in India that you come empty-handed, you leave empty-handed. But when I saw his empty hands, that's when it really landed in my heart that, oh my God, this is what it means, So that made me really think about where my life was going, because I was pretty much on automatic until then. You go to school, you go to college, you become a graduate, then you go for post-graduation, then you find a job, the usual, the conditioned life that we are all born into, that is predetermined for us. So I was on that track. And this incident really made me stop in my tracks and reevaluate what I was doing. So 2 years after, about a year after my father's passing, I decided that I wanted to quit because I had so much time to grieve and process and think about what I wanted to do. I got some new training, some new coaching, thinking about what I wanted to do next, if not this. So I got myself prepared for about a couple of years. And then I decided to take the leap. I got many messages telling me, like intuitive messages as well as random messages from strangers and people, which kind of reconfirmed to me that this is the right thing for me to do. I hope that answers your question.
So now I'm curious, and maybe doing what I put in the introduction in reverse order. What appeared, what emerged as your life's purpose? Was it clear to you?
At that time, it was not very clear. However, I got an image. I mean, that's not like I got an image that was kind of prophetic. So, in that image, I was dressed in white and I was sitting on a rock and I had a following in front of me. So, you could say a guru, but it was just representative actually of being a teacher. So, I felt that that's something that I wanted to do, to teach and teach whatever I had learned about spiritual truths and life experiences and whatever life was showing to me. So I just saw this vision that I'm teaching, and I have actually ended up teaching. That's what I do now. At that time, it was not clear, but there were too many messages saying just take the leap of faith. For example, I was attending NLP coaching actually in London with Dr. Richard Bandler. And in those, all the people who were there were many, many very interesting people who were doing that same training along with me. And one of them was a tarot reader. And just randomly, we were standing, and I said, "Oh, you're a tarot reader." We were just waiting for the doors to open. I said, "Well, pull a card for me," just on a whim. And she pulled a card, and it was of a person, and I think it was Osho tarot cards, and it was of a person taking a leap into the unknown. And then the doors opened, and we had to go in, and I couldn't speak to her. But I remember that. It was like a sign that you just leap even though you have no idea where you're going to fall. And later on in my dreams, I had this sensation that I was falling on a bed of flowers. So that further reaffirmed to me that life is wanting me to go in this direction. I do follow signs. I believe in coincidences, and it pikes my attention when something is repeated again and again, and I get these messages from the universe from various ways. So I learned a long time ago to follow these and trust these signs.
And Nandini, was this always the case that you trusted the signs, or you had this connection to this spiritual part? So even when you were saying that you followed a clear, normal path in a big corporate, or did this appear after your decision, or while you were thinking about deciding something different?
Yeah, more after my decision, not before that. Before that, I was oblivious to what was happening. But I also used to read a lot of spiritual books. So I read a book called Synchro Destiny by Deepak Chopra, Dr. Deepak Chopra. And in that, he speaks about how synchronicities, which is what these coincidences are signs from the universe. So somewhere, I don't remember exactly what the book said, but somewhere that stuck in my mind, and I started noticing when these kind of synchronicities would happen. So it was more after I started contemplating what the purpose of my life was and so on.
For me, it's hearing the story where this starting point and the open-handed expression really touches me. I had not a similar, but a very deep crisis in my life as well. So in my family, and this open-handed example really, really touches me, Nandini. And I'm struggling myself a bit in doing my next step. So what was this little move from your side for the next step, going in a different direction?
I'm not sure I'm very clear about the question.
What I understood is, or maybe I try, what made you tip into making the step?
Yeah, it was actually very difficult because I had a very, very good position. I was working with the Coca-Cola company. I was handling a lot of the marketing of Europe, and I was in the head office in London, and I had an great job, great connection, wonderful colleagues, really looked after by the company, earning really good money, coming into the bank every day, and a good lifestyle. It was extremely hard actually, but I felt a very strong inner conflict, and I was just like double minded. I remember I called up 10 people which were on my list, my colleagues and friends, asking them, should I stay or should I go? And 5 voted stay and 5 voted go. So it didn't help at all. And then I knew I had to write in this resignation, and I a part of me said, oh my god, what if I leave and then nothing happens and I don't have this job anymore, and I go back to India, and then what will I do, and I'll have to downgrade my lifestyle, and all this fear around it. And there was one day I woke up and I just had to take a decision, and I couldn't go into office, so I made some excuse that I wasn't well or something. And I remember I sat down in meditation. I don't know how this idea came to me, and I just said to the universe, I'm not getting up unless I have a decision. I will not poo, I will not pee, I will not do anything. It was like I became obstinate with the universe that you can't leave me in this indecisive mode and then not give me any signs, like family members saying, no, no, don't stay, stay, why are you coming back? There's nothing for you in India. And others saying, no, no, follow your heart and all. I'm like, you just can't do this to me. So I sat, I don't know how long I sat. It wasn't that long, but it may have been 45 minutes or an hour or something like that. And I just I got this vision of teaching people, and also I remembered the tarot card of just take the leap. It was so strong. And then I remember the next day I went into office early morning at 7 o'clock before anybody comes in, and I typed my resignation email, and as soon as I hit the send button, I felt such a sense of relief. So I knew that I had done the right thing.
But it was not clear the direction where you want to head.
It was not clear at all. But it was what I also got in my meditation, that if I stayed, what would happen? And if I left, what would happen? So if I stayed was predictable. It was a little bit boring even. Whereas if I left, it was like an adventure, and it was unknown, and it was based on trusting. So somehow that pulled me in that moment to make that decision. I guess in that moment I was able to overcome the fear, because it's actually the fear that holds us back. We're just afraid of the unknown. But actually, life is unknown. We have no idea what is going to happen next. So if we become comfortable about just relaxing into the unknown and allow life to take us, like become the driver of our car and take us where it wants to go. I mean, it can take us places that we can't even imagine. I'm doing things and meeting people I could have never even imagined in my wildest dreams that I would have. Not that it's all rosy and pink, but just in terms of the diversity of experiences that I've had, the kinds of people I've met, and the spiritual growth that I have experienced is worth much more than the whatever hundreds of thousands or whatever I would have earned being in. What was the point of earning all this money if I didn't have any time to enjoy it? Like, I found it hard to take a 15-day vacation and be able to completely relax in a whole year. So sometimes I just thought, I had this camera which I couldn't shoot from. I had all this money which I couldn't spend because there was no time to do any of that, because I was so caught in the whole matrix.
So tell us, what happened after this magical moment of pressing the button on your resignation?
Yeah, I left. They gave me 2 months. I took 2 months notice. Actually, they were very sweet. I resigned in October, I remember, And the HR called me and said, don't leave right now, leave at the end of December so you can get your bonus for the year. And I was like, oh, thank you so much for letting me know that. So 31st December 2004 was my last working day with the corporate. And then I came to India, and yeah, I mean, there's small moments, like memories that are coming to me. Like after a few days of being here, one day I was in the shower and I was, as usual, rushing, sort of scrubbing. And suddenly I just told myself, why am I rushing? Because I have nowhere to go to. All I had to do was go for lunch to my mother's, and it was just 10 in the morning. So there was a long time to go for lunch. So I realized that I had actually been rushing in the shower all these years, or rushing to get dressed all these years, that my life had just been rush, 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 rush to get here, rush to get there. And I was like, oh, I can slow down. And then for the first time, I was like, oh, these are my arms. These are my hands. Like I was able to inhabit my body again. I was able to be conscious of where I was, who I was, what was happening. And that was a very new experience for me. And I realized that I had not actually been conscious and not been present to my own body, to my own thoughts, to my own mind, to my own life until that moment. It's only when you get the contrast that you can come home to that. And who could have ever, predicted that something like this would happen? I mean, it's totally the unknown. I couldn't have predicted when I was sitting in fear that something like this would happen, and how profound it would be to actually come into your own body and into the present moment and realize that, wow, I'm alive.
So this was the physical aspect of the body. At this stage, did you already focus on food and lifestyle as well?
No, not really. I was just doing what everybody is doing, the standard diet. I was always what I thought a healthy eater, although I was very overweight. And I wasn't really sure why I was overweight, because according to me, I was eating healthy, and I was not eating junk, and I was not addicted to soda or anything like that. So I just put it down to my both my parents were overweight at the same age that I was. And I just thought, okay, it runs in my genes, it runs in the family. There's nothing I can do about it. So this was 2005. And then my younger sister, I have two younger sisters, they're twins. And one of them was suffering from rheumatoid arthritis. And she was living in Dubai with her husband at that time. And she started to not do so well after my father's passing. She was not able to come to terms with the grief of losing my father. And at that time, she and her husband, they were trying to have a baby. So she came off her main medications for RA, and her health started to decline. And my mother and I got very worried because we felt a lot of weakness in her voice. But at that time, there were no that much video phones and things like that. So we didn't really know what was happening and what she looked like. We asked her to come back, and she came back to India, and she was like, I was shocked when I saw her coming out of the airport, because she looked like a skeleton. She had lost so much weight, and the doctors couldn't figure out what was happening. And we, took her to a lot of doctors, and we just kept being sent from one doctor to the other, because what I realized is that allopathy was not really looking at the person as a whole human being. Because what they would say is, okay, we've checked her on this front, so her gastric issues seem to be much more. Please take her to a gastroenterologist. And the gastro would say, oh, we've checked her and it seems to be okay. Please take her to an endocrinologist. And then the endocrinologist would say, oh, please take her to a nephrologist because there's something wrong with her kidneys. Or they would say, take her back to the gastro because her liver needs to be. So we were just like a football, from one to the other, to the other, to the other. Finally, we took her to her rheumatologist as well. And they said, oh, we have to inject her. But before we inject her with these special, expensive injections that will really help her, we have to do certain tests and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, they did the tests, and during that time, her condition really worsened. And actually, she collapsed and passed away one night. And that was a huge, huge shock for me. And I just didn't know how to deal with it. I was like completely in overwhelm. And I felt very intensely responsible and guilty about not being able to help her, because she was my younger sister. My father had just passed away. She was grieving. And as an older sister, I guess that was my personality as well, to be responsible, to be the older child who's, looking after and guiding everyone. And I took that extremely hard. I mean, I couldn't even cry. Like, I was in such shock that I didn't even express my grief. I couldn't shout, I couldn't scream, I couldn't cry, I couldn't say anything. It was like a part of me just died with her, or just shut down, because it was unable to cope with the immensity of what had happened. I was just not prepared for that. So basically, my mind was a mess after that, because I just sat in the energy and frequency of guilt for weeks, for months together. And it was hell. My mind was hell. If there's a hell, I've experienced it. It was in my mind. I got nightmares. There were certain things that happened after her death, which incidents, which when I thought about them, they gave me nightmares. Much later, I realized that I actually went through post traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. But at that time, I didn't know that, because I got anxiety, I got nightmares, I got racing heartbeat. I really didn't know what was happening to me. I was just not even there. I wasn't even present. And it took me many years, actually. I worked with therapists, I spoke to different people, I tried to help myself, I spoke to spiritual teachers, but the whatever I had, this feeling that I was responsible and I was guilty, I should have helped more, that just wouldn't go away no matter what I did. And basically, 2 months after her passing, so intense was my self loathing and self hatred, that just 2 months after her passing, I woke up one night with my hands swollen, and I was in extreme pain. And slowly, all my joints got affected, everything got affected. The doctors couldn't diagnose it, but after 9 months, they diagnosed me with the same condition that my sister had. It was as if I was punishing myself for what had happened. And none of the doctors wanted to hear about that, right? They never asked me, what happened, or how come just 2 months after your sister's passing. Nothing like that. They just check your symptoms and they prescribe you steroids and immunosuppressants. And I tried so much to talk to people, saying, well, I got the same disease as my sister, and just 2 months after her passing, because my state of mind was so bad. But somehow nobody could help me understand what had actually happened. So after that, in 2009, when the economic crisis happened, until then I was working as a training. I was doing trainings for corporations. I was doing corporate trainings. So my entire business shut down, because all the training budgets were just gone when the economic crisis happened. And then I had to pay attention to my health. So after that, my health journey started.
Okay.
And I started looking after my diet, and started exploring and reading and finding out. Uh, I wanted to know why I got this illness. What happened? Is it linked to my sister's death? Is it just genes? What can I do? What did I do to deserve it? All those kinds of things. I had a very, like, initially, I used to treat my illness as an enemy, as an irritant, as something I had to wage a war on and win a battle from. That was my relationship. But later on, a few years down the line, as I realized that this was not taking me anywhere, and I was not really winning this battle. In fact, I was on the losing end. Again, certain intuitions, certain visions happened, where the disease morphed into a friend, and it came to me and said, "Let me take your hand. Let's walk together." And it was so kind and so friendly, and so loving in that moment, that I was that it was a turning point for me. Then I said, okay, I accepted that it's here, and it's not necessarily my enemy. Perhaps it has something to show me and teach me. And then I started walking along with it. And more recently, earlier this year, in February, March 2023, I went through another kind of a dark night of the soul kind of crisis, where I had anxiety attacks, panic attacks, and all kinds of things. And this is after following diet and lifestyle and having one of the best lifestyles I know anybody to have. And I just couldn't fathom what was going on. All I knew was I was not going to go to the hospital. So again, I sat with myself, and eventually what emerged is, now my relationship with the illness is, now look at it as a revered teacher and a guide. I would still want it to go away, but I also am not resentful that it's here.
Powerful. I was thinking, you mentioned the situation with the financial crisis, 2009. Did this situation, like, forcing you to do nothing in a sense, because you were training before, no budgets means no contracts? Did this transform or made you able to hear the voice?
Absolutely, because I had no more work, so nothing to distract me from outside, and nothing to do, because even my standing contracts were all cancelled. Yeah. So there was nothing to do except look at myself, and I would look in the mirror at myself and not feel happy with the way I appeared, and the way I looked, and the way I felt in the morning. So I had to, that was the only thing left to work on, really, in that moment for me. That's what rose from within, that I had to look at myself, and I had to figure out what was going on inside me, and I had to try and improve things, improve the situation, because it was not sustainable.
How did this process, how did this learning change how you teach?
Well, I wasn't a health coach then. I was just a corporate trainer. And then in 2011, I changed my diet to a vegan diet, to a whole food plant-based diet, after reading the China study. And that began a lot of shifts inside me. I connected better to my own compassion, because I could see that, an animal whose body I'm feasting on is not the most compassionate way to live. Because for a long time, I wanted to be a vegetarian, but I was just not able to do that. So I used to practice something called mindful eating. And some of those practices became more deep. And when I finally saw what I was doing, and it became very clear to me, I was able to come off. I became vegetarian for about 15 days. And then I read the China study, and I decided that I might as well go vegan, because if I can leave fish and prawns, which I used to love eating, then I can let go of cheese and milk as well. So I just decided to do it as an experiment initially, just to see what happens. And within 3 months, I felt my energy improved so much. And I remember that I used to skip rather than walk, like how children can't walk, they skip. And I was like, how did this happen? Because I used to weigh over 100 kilos at one point, and now I have this skipping energy, and I'm much lighter, 20-30 kilos lighter. And that just motivated me to keep going, because it showed me that if the body is feeling better energy, if the body is feeling lighter, if you're feeling more uplifted and more positive, then this is the right way to go. So that began my experiments with food. Of course, I've done much, much, much more than that. I have done, I've been raw vegan, I've been fruitarian for a couple of months, I've done a lot of fasting, things like that. But all these were just for me, all spiritual pointers. They are not there for the sake of doing that. They were basically clearing the way of food distractions so that I could see the reality of what life is a little bit clearer. So each one of those experiments actually helped me see myself, see the matrix, see the reality of the world. And it's still happening. It's still uncovering because the layers are so subtle that they're still peeling off. And I don't know how far down the rabbit hole, this mystery goes, maybe forever. I don't know. But it's so much more fun doing this than doing some predictable, boring job, 9 to 5, answering to a boss that you don't particularly want to. So,
Yeah, I've imagined such a situation already in my life, and I'm quite sure some others did as well, or do as well. So, Nandini, if you would have something to teach the Nandini in the big corp, what would one advice be from the Nandini today to the Nandini 20 years ago?
that's a good question. Yeah, one would be to slow down, take time out, and embody yourself. Like, know who you are, be present to who you are. That's one. And the second would be to listen to the voice of intuition, or as we say, listen to your heart. Let that voice be a bit louder and listen to what it's saying, because that's actually the guidance from the universe, from infinite intelligence, from whoever is wanting you to raise your consciousness. So listen to that and follow that.
And Nandini, what kind of situation would the Nandini 20 years ago needed? What kind of situation, room, space would have been needed that the Nandini would have taken the advice and started to embrace this?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, it had to be the way it was, I guess. It's usually a setback that happens, either an illness or a relationship problem or a divorce or some crisis in your own health or in your own work, maybe getting fired from your job or something. It's usually a crisis that makes us realize the true value of what we already have and what we are missing, which we are taking for granted. That's what I've seen. Most awakenings happen because of a crisis. So, crisis is the way that the universe is shining our diamond, polishing our diamond, so that we can shine brighter and go to the next level and the next level. That's my experience. Unless someone comes in already quite aware and awakened and they can take that path, most of us will get conditioned by the ways of the world, because most of us are living in a very similar kind of conditioned hypnosis, with slight variations in culture. But everybody, has to go to school and then college and then take a job and then get married and then have children. So everybody is on this track. It's usually takes a crisis to make us realize what is going on.
And after all those crises you had in life, can you imagine one crisis that really brings the fear out of you?
Meaning, makes me fearful or releases the fear?
I don't know. Probably both.
I think ultimately what I found was that fear of death is the biggest fear. And when we are able to sit with it and face it, uh, it has a lot to teach us. Because at the end of the day, we all have to face our immortality. I mean, our mortality, immortality also, because there are two sides of the same coin. If we look at the Hindu thought and the Buddhist thought, it's about reincarnation, right? We have multiple lifetimes to get this right. This is not the only lifetime. So it's okay if we haven't got it right in this lifetime, because we have multiple lifetimes. So that's one way to look at it, and to say, okay, this is just one dress I have, and then I'll change and get into another dress and try again. So, but also at a physical level, we are really facing our mortality. You know, we know that this physical body and these possessions and this family that we are so attached to, or this lifestyle and whatever it is, one day we have to leave it. All of us do. Whether you're a king or an emperor or a prime minister or a president or a athlete or a superstar celebrity or a poor person, everybody has to let go. So being able to sit with that, face that, remember that, is for me a spiritual practice. And it is actually a spiritual practice. There are meditations where you imagine yourself dying. There is a great saint of India called Ramana Maharishi from southern India, and the story goes that when he was a teenager, he had a spontaneous moment where he imagined his own death. So he just lay on the floor as if he was dead and went through his own death, and after that he awakened to what life is about. So, if we can just grapple with it, face it, not be fearful, not avoid it and distract it all the time, then I think we start learning about how to live.
Thank you very much.
I would like to ask a question which is a bit related to something which we talked before, but which caught my attention. And you talked about health, you talked about food, you talked about experimentation. And a bit I'm asking, as a father of a teenager who's quite picky about food, how do you encourage, inspire experimentation around food?
Yeah. It's difficult. One of my teachers says that food is the greatest material attachment. So to detach from, like, people would rather die than change their food and lifestyle habits, to heal themselves. Because it's just, for them, like, it's a dependency. It's a pleasure also, it's a dependency also. It's like there is no meaning in life if I had to stop this one particular food, even, you know. So the attachment is so deep and it is generational. God knows how long, we have been off the path from our, what is our natural diet. We have not been eating that for millennia, ever since human beings discovered fire. So it is very deep. So I have a lot of compassion for it because I see it within myself as well. Every time I have tried to quit something and experiment with going more clean, and then another level of clean, and then another level of clean, it's a struggle. It's an internal struggle, because the old addictions, the old cravings, the old attachments, the old uh, addictions of the tongue, they just pull you back constantly. And they have the power to hijack the mind. There are times when I'm in a fast and all I can think about is food.
Of course. What
I'm
else?
fasting and all I'm thinking about is food, food, food. And what am I going to do when I break the fast? And what am I going to eat first? And then what am I going to eat next? And which restaurants I'm going to visit? It's just crazy. It shows you how addicted the mind is. I mean, it's as people recognize alcohol, drugs, cigarette smoking as addictions. But we don't recognize that food also is an addiction, especially all this food that is inflammatory, that's acidic, that's not particularly good for us, is the most addictive food. That bag of chips, that donut, those cookies, that chocolate cake, that tea, that coffee, it's very, very hard. It's not easy. And you asked me about your child. Actually, you can't tell children to do it. You have to do it for yourself. You can only role model it for your children and just put the seeds in there and make something sumptuous and delicious that if they wish to try, which you're eating, then they can try. You cannot make anybody do this. I can't even make adults do it. So children is a long shot. It's like it has to be something that you start in childhood, you make because when we are children, we actually love the taste of fruit and fresh food, and we find all these flavors very intense. Like any infant, you give something very intense to, like something with high sugar or high flavors or spice, they will not like it. So naturally our taste buds are accustomed to eating our natural diet. But because we give it to our own children and it's given to us as children, our taste buds get corrupted, I feel. And then after some time, you cannot taste the sweetness of a carrot, even. You can't taste the freshness of an apple or the juiciness of a mango. And like the pleasure goes down. And then in salads, we have to put a lot of fat and oil and spice and salt and all kinds of dressings to be able to taste anything, because the taste buds have just become accustomed to heightened taste over time. So it's a process, it's a journey, and it's not just about food. For me, the journey of cleaning up my food and taking a look at that is the highest spiritual practice I do. It's easier to meditate in the Himalayas. Quit ice cream and show me. Quit your chips and show me. Quit your coffee and show me. That to me is someone who has conquered themselves. In India, we use the term swami. Swa means self, and like to basically transcend yourself. Even the spiritual teachers who are here in India, who are popular, and I'm not saying anything wrong with them, they all have their own place and I respect whatever each one is doing. But they themselves say, I'm diabetic, but I'm addicted to ice cream. I'm addicted to sweets. I have to have this. So even they have not yet been able to come out of the attachment for food, because it's and I have compassion, because even I'm in the same spot. I'm also trying to quit, because I know that my body feels really good, very light. My mind feels very clear when I'm on a diet of fruit, for example, is the best I feel. However, I'm not able to stick to it because the mind keeps craving and wants me to eat something else, something savory, something crunchy, something spicy. So it's something we have to work with within ourselves. It's a journey.
And Nandini, is this the reason why you have founded the Empower Health Tribe? Or is this something different in your life?
Yeah. So the Empower Health Tribe is based on my own journey of trying to heal my rheumatoid arthritis, which I was diagnosed with in 2008, but it had appeared in 2007. And I was not able to find any good answers from all the doctors that I visited. And I tried a lot of alternative practitioners, Ayurveda, homeopathy, acupuncture, acupressure, and a lot of other modalities, like dozens of them. And sure, each one was like a piece in the puzzle. Each one helped, and I'm grateful to each of the people who tried to help me during that time, because they were instrumental in my journey stepping forward. Each one was like a step forward. And at the end of the day, what I have realized is that each one of us has the ability to be our own best self-healer. Whether you're talking of a physical ailment, or you're talking about an emotional suppression, or some trauma from your childhood, or some painful memories that you may have from your past, we are the only ones who really know what is going on inside our being. So the Empower Health Tribe is to share everything that I know with people so they can learn how to become their own best healers, how to become self healers. Because ultimately, this is what I did. I had to release trauma and old events from my childhood that was sitting there in my subconscious that I wasn't even aware of, actually. But they all came up when I went through my dark night of the soul that I mentioned earlier. So the goal is to help people with chronic illness specifically, because that's what I have. So I'm congruent with that. I understand the challenges of living with a chronic inflammatory disease. So helping people who have any kind of chronic condition and maybe have been told that they have to be on medication for the rest of their life, to help them to help themselves, to teach them how to self-heal. And my model is based on 5 levels of existence. In India, we have the Panch Kosh. So we recognize that we are existing on 5 levels. There's the physical level, that's the one that everybody sees. But there is also an emotional level of existence. We have to look at that as well. There is a mental thought level of existence. There's an intuitive level of existence, and eventually a spiritual level of existence. So when these 5 levels of existence are out of sync, that's when disease manifests in the body. And when we get these 5 levels into sync, we can start healing ourselves. And healing really begins at a spiritual level, emotional level, mental level. And then it may or may not translate into the physical level. For me, I'm not fully free. I'm free of medication. I was able to come off all medication after trying and failing 7 times to quit it. Eventually, I was able to quit it in 2020. However, I still have inflammation, which is why I keep doing the diet path, because my disease, which is my teacher, keeps me honest on the path. Because if I go off it, I just get a kickback. I get pain, I get stiffness, I get inflammation. So now what I've realized is that it's possible to heal these other sheets without the healing maybe translating 100% even. It's still important to heal at an emotional level, spiritual level, intuitive level, mental level. So the suffering comes down. There may still be pain in the body, but you're not suffering as much because you understand it at a deeper level. You have a different relationship with your illness. You have a different relationship with your body. You know how to self-soothe. You know, like now I know that if I eat this, I will feel better. If I eat that, I will feel worse. So sometimes I choose to eat that because I want to be part of a social situation, or I just have such an intense craving that I can't help it anymore. But at least I have a path now that if I do this, then I will feel better and I don't necessarily have to depend on medication, for example. Or if I get very stressed and interrupt my sleep, then also the inflammation goes up. So now I know how I can calm myself down. What is it that's making me stressed? To be aware of my thoughts, my emotions. So self-awareness is a big key into becoming a self-healer. So I teach some of these things that work for me. I share them with other people so that they can use them, try them in their life, and see what benefits it brings them and how it helps them align their 5 sheets of the body, the Panch Kosh, to reduce their suffering eventually. That's my goal, to help reduce the suffering on the planet due to chronic illnesses.
Yes, we are slowly but steadily coming to the end of our session. What would be maybe a recommendation you would give to someone listening to this, watching this, and thinking, okay, I believe I should do something and I'm willing to do a small step? What would be a good first step? And maybe going even further, how could someone proceed further? Maybe learn more about your health type?
Sure. Okay, so let me give you recommendations based on mind, body, spirit. I'll give you 3 recommendations. So as far as the mind, which includes the subconscious mind, and I'm including emotions in that as well, it's very, very important to do what is called shadow work, which is to look into the darkness inside us. For me, for anybody with a chronic illness, and my personal experience is that for me, it would have been impossible to heal. And by healing, I mean holistic healing. If I had not been brave enough to sit in the darkness of my wounding, of my pain, of what's stopping me, to investigate that, to become, like a detective going inside yourself and saying, okay, what's holding me back? Bring it on, I'm ready to face it. Show me what's going on. especially we are adults now, right? We're 30, 40, 50 years old, whatever we are. When are we going to do this? Because very soon we'll be gone, and then another lifetime to repeat the same patterns. I say let go of it. So either you might want to work with a therapist or a practitioner, or there are so many wonderful books around. There's a lovely holistic psychologist that I follow that greatly inspired me. Her name is Dr. Nicole LaPera, and her book is called How to Do the Work. Just grab that, follow her on Instagram. There's so many podcasts that she offers. Start doing the work of releasing your past traumas, your childhood pain, your anything that's holding you back. And if you have any trigger in your life, like you get angry, you feel helpless, you feel sad, you feel depressed, that is showing you that there is um, unresolved emotions inside that want to be healed. The triggers are portals to what's sitting inside sabotaging us. So release that. That's the biggest recommendation to get the work started. I guess that's also works in the spiritual realms. Spiritual realm, I'll just say, listen to your own intuition. Tune into your intuition and the signs that the universe is sending you. And on the physical aspect, I would say, sometimes people ask me, what's the best way to begin a clean diet? How can I start this journey? So my biggest recommendation or best recommendation is start eating more fruit. Include more fruit into your diet. If you can, switch to an all-fruit breakfast. Please do that. That would be the most beneficial. After that, you can do whatever you're doing. Because when you make the switch to an all-fruit breakfast and how your body feels differently over time as you do it, that will guide you to whatever is the next step that is right for you. So those are my recommendations.
Thank you very much, Nandini. And my last question, if someone out there now has followed us and want to connect with you, what would be the best approach to get in touch with the founder of the Empower Health Tribe and Nandini?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram. My handle is my name at Nandini Gulati. I'm on Facebook. So you can just message me on any of those platforms. That's one way. My website will be launched by the end of the month, and that's also going to be nandinigulati.com. YouTube, same handle. So I'm actually about to launch my Empower Health Tribe. I'll be offering courses. So if anybody wants to know what's coming up next, I have a holding group on WhatsApp where people will be informed the minute I launch my program, and I will be offering some goodies for the people who have been holding with me over there. So those are the best ways. Just look up my name. I have a big presence on Google, on the net, so you can just find me on any of these usual places where people are found.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having a wonderful session. I'm going to run a bit of background music, which indicates we really need to come to an end. Thank you, Nandini, for being there.
Thank you for having me.
And you definitely inspired me to have an all-fruit breakfast. Never thought about this. And you planted the seed. Thank you very much. Thank you to everyone connected, and a special shout out to Amadou. And if you're wondering what Amadou did, apart from putting the messages in which Rainer put on screen, there are a lot more, and I really encourage you to take a look at the post on LinkedIn. There they will be. Amadou, thank you very much for being with us. I hope you enjoyed it. Have a wonderful Friday. Have a wonderful weekend, or whatever lies in front of you when you hear or watch this. And see you very soon in the Café Courage.